This is hold up, you know. Yes, for the evening, aren't we? Beautiful.
Con Aaron Bioga Conanish, sing a little song, Breedog Ni Wale. Breedog Ni Wale, the dog Craic White. Where the Aringa Composh, the yard Lorn Creek. On a cave of foreign roller, the even cute noira. It's the dog to Barbara. Here, atmosphere. Me Penny Sole, on Gallachus Canon Toilet. No blow, no, and false air and drying. Oh, shoot more Vince Gross and me still she left Roy Hall. Delin Mala no holler, knock yard reflame. Is Buchel das ook mee, tot real kan bij je fosse. Ak ni moody wat bio mee, met een bike mee me vien. I could slice a story in Dane race, be Romsa. Kan there knock them down now? Boring drum sheet. Is there shot? This is brown up. A car and shone down now. My dying goodness me, like a snoil drown. Snake really nice to be gigging again. It's kind of emotional, actually. It's my first one in nearly 2 years. So, tonight, probably all over Cork and all over Ireland, it's very emotional for a lot of musicians, I think. We're back. This one is called Queen of Limney, Lament for Limerick. I'll just do one more and then I'll leave you. Something I like to talk about a lot is, we do a lot of Irish music on the harp, but it's not just for Irish music, and it's actually a much more versatile instrument than people would think. I was actually doing Bruno Mars with one of my students the other day, so you can do all kinds of stuff on the harp. So I'm going to try a bit of the Beatles. Who knows how long I've loved you? You know I love you still. Will I wait a lonely lifetime? If you want me to, I will. And if I ever saw you and didn't catch your name, but it never really mattered, I will always feel the same. Love you forever and forever. Love you with all my heart. Love you whenever we're together. Love you when we're apart. And when at last I found you, your song would fill the air. Sing it loud so I can hear you. Make it easy to be near you. For the things you're doing, dear, you to me. Oh, you know I will.
Thank you, Sheila. Good evening, everybody. And you're very, very, very welcome along tonight. It's lovely to see everybody in person and live performances back again. So we're thrilled on behalf of Cork ETB and ourselves here in Macroom Further Education Centre to be welcoming you here this evening. I'm very delighted as well also to have Joe Creedon here as our guarantee for the evening. So Joe will be taking you through all the performances. Sheila has already begun with her beautiful playing. Thank you, Sheila. And Sheila's heading away now. So thank you very much. Will you play one more before you go, Sheila? Yes, well done. So before I hand you over to Joe, just a few small housekeeping things. Because of COVID, obviously, we're going to try and restrict our movements throughout the night. So we're not going to have any break at halftime or anything like that. So I'm asking you please to stay seated, unless, of course, you need to use the facilities. Our toilets are inside the door, just straight in at the end of the corridor. We have complimentary bottles of water if you're thirsty. And if you feel like you need to get up out of the seat for some period of time, that's okay, but would you please wear your mask and not be going around the houses. Much and all as we'd love to spend time chatting with each other, we're going to try and be mindful of social distancing as well while enjoying the evening. So thank you very much, everybody, and over to Joe. Have a great night.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and an honour to be here in Macroom, where the Lee and the Sláine and the Fóharish all meet together. And from those slopes and those riverbanks, I think we're probably all gathered this evening. And what a nice introduction to our evening, and especially that looked for Limerick. And Limerick was the watershed of the old bardic ways, and after that the bards and the poets were thrown on the world, and they had to go on the highways and the byways, and they no longer had the nobility to foster them. They had to rely on Joe Soap and a few more people like that. But here in this Muskerry region, Ballyvourne, Macroom, Rylan, Ballinagree, Carriganimmer, Kilmichael, Evelary was the home of music and poetry and art. And it's very fitting that we're here this evening, surrounded by musicians from this area. And we've got the pick of them really. So I think really my role is not to bore you too much and to let you enjoy the music. And I'm going to give Sheila her chance to do a final piece for us. What do you want to sing, Sheila?
I'm going to do an English folk song, sung by an English singer called Kate Roseby.
Lovely.
Called Let the Cold Wind Blow.
Beautiful. Well, we hope there won't be too many cold winds, especially for Michael Galvin there from Kilmurray this evening.
Oh, dear me, what do mine eyes see? James Reynolds and my love sat under yon tree. My heart is sore, for she loves me no more. Sing high, low, lay, at the end of the day. Sing high, low, lay, at the end of the day. Here I stand, empty heart, empty hand, while he has my true love and he has the land. My heart it grieves, for she loves him indeed. Sing high, low, lay, at the end of the day. Sing high, low, lay, at the end of the day. No more she'll cry, no more she'll over the cold earth beneath which I lie. My heart it grieves, for my side she now leaves. Sing high, low, lay at the end of the day. Sing high, low, lay at the end of the day. Let the cold wind blow, let the years come and go. I wait for my true love, though she'll never know. I wish them no rest, like the heart in my breast. Sing I low lay at the end of the day. Sing high, low, lay at the end of the day.
Thank you, Sheila. We have some more artists coming up now. I think I was told to get up there. Do you want me to go up there? Yeah, why not? I better do what Fintan tells me, because I'm not really the boss here. Fintan is the boss. I hope I'm not interfering with any of your... Yeah, here I am. Anyway, usually when I'm around, there are stories or something or other, and when I shouldn't be here at all anyway, but I blame Lena Cronin because she persisted on me to come and do this. But anyway, I sat and I thought about Macroom. And Macroom, of course, is the market town for the region, and it has many, many stories for all of us. But in my life anyway, there were so many characters. I wrote down, it's about 30 names of business people and characters from Macroom. But we're very near Liam O'Brien's house, and Liam O'Brien was a regular visitor to Inchigeela, and every time he came there was a funny story. And he taught at the vocational school, and in his retirement he used to go out doing the higher dip examinations, and Liam was a Kerry man, so he wasn't short of a word. But anyway, he would be well entertained when he'd go around to the schools, and principal would meet him and bring him into the office, and there'd be a glass or two of whiskey before the job of the day would start at all. It's so different today now. But anyway, things were going well like that. But anyway, this day he went to Ballyfihan, I think it was. He arrived at the convent, and he was met by a very stubborn principal. This nun said, "Come along," she said, "Mr. O'Brien," and she brought him down the corridor. "In there," she said. And he was kind of disappointed that he didn't get any hospitality anyway. But the following morning he arrived again, and she met him at the door, and he said, good morning, Mr. O'Brien." "Well," he said, "sister," he said, "I was thinking about you last night," he said. "And what I couldn't make out," he said, "how come such a good-looking woman like you ever entered the convent," he said. "What a loss to mankind. Oh, Mr. O'Brien, you're an awful man. Come in here to the office." So he did very well, and many, many more stories. The other man that I was very fond of, he used to come out to Inchigeela, that was Dennis Deneen, the photographer. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you about him, because he had a beautiful book published a few years ago with a lot of his photography. And going to school in a village, and you know what they say about a village, it takes a village to rear a child. But anyway, there was a lot of interesting things going on in the village. And last week we were out on, NASA had me out doing a walk around the village anyway, and we were doing history as much as we could. But then I decided we'd lighten it a small bit, and I was telling them about our trip to school in the morning, that there was a creamery at the end of the village, and there were 120 suppliers. So there was this constant horses and cars and churns going through the village. But when RT was just out at the time, and our favourite programme at the time was Green Acres. Does any of you remember Green Acres? And Eva Gabor. And Eva and the husband had moved to the countryside, but they never really had made the transition. She was still wearing a sort of a negligee with a fur trim in it, and a fur trimmed slippers, and some sort of a very fancy headwear anyway. and they had a pet pig called Arnold. And Arnold used to get into a lot of trouble. But anyhow, as we went to school in the morning, the house by the school was Dr. MacDonald and his wife Maisie. And it was usually at that time Maisie went to the shop for cigarettes, and she had her negligee and her headgear and her slippers on. So we had Green Acres when we were going to school in Inchigeelagh. But anyway, if I ran up from school, there might often be a wedding going on, and Dennis would be taking the wedding photographs. And of course, I would arrive to Dennis anyway, and I'd be told to move a seat with him, and I'd get a half-crown. And God, a half-crown was an awful lot. So it'll tell you about the kind of person he was, that he was a fine, handsome man, and he had this beautiful Mercedes. It was a wedding car at the time and so on like that. And I thought I'd try a song that Dennis used to sing. And he had a beautiful singing voice. And if you can join along with me, do. And I think our other musicians are kind of ready to sing then after that. My heart is broken, but what care I? Some pride inside me has woken. I'll try my best not to cry by and by, when the final farewell has been spoken. I'll join the Legion, that's what I'll do, and in some far distant region I know it's time I sought a foreign clime, where I may find a heart's poor kind. Goodbye, goodbye, I wish you all a last goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, I wish you all a last goodbye. It could go on longer, but anyway, that'll do. Yeah. But one of my younger memories was we had a parish priest in Inchigeelagh, Father Bernard was his name, and he was quite a character. There could be a book written about him. And anyway, I think he was a great man for the greyhounds, so that's where all his money went. And if he was buying a coat, I think he'd go to Cork to the market, and he might buy a coat at the market. Anyhow, the coat had to be taken to be shortened. And Lloyd George was the tailor up the hill. So I remember coming from Cork one evening with my father and Father Bernard anyway, calling for the coat. And Lloyd George was missing anyway, and we were waiting. And up the street came Lloyd George wearing Father Bernard's coat. So anyhow, that was some of the stories. So Fintan, would you like to surpass this fellow now here? But anyway, Fintan Lucy is living in Kilnamartyr, and he's I've heard him play before and sing, and you're in for a great treat. And I don't think I do it by my microphone. I haven't, but I don't need it anyway. And Nolly Ward is going to accompany him. But you heard Nolly playing when we came in earlier on the guitar, and there was a lovely piece about any boy, so you're in for a lovely treat. Now, how am I doing?
No, Lee, we can't hear it.
Django Reinhardt piece from the 40s. Yeah, you'll have to get a lot closer to that. Yeah. He doesn't like microphones. Oh, I never got around to tuning my guitar. All the other jobs. We're going to do a song next. We do the do. It's a song I wrote called I'm a Goner. In the key of A. Small delay here. Beautiful. Ship with ripples on the water, shimmering the hills and the sky, moving the specks, shuffling the days. Full moon came round without a falter, gave me a kick in the eye. Mirror shards, I look at my cards. I'm a goner, left with no right thing to do. When it's not up to me, then I'm nothing to you. I'm a goner, I'm gonna rest at the end of the day. When lightning and thunder come knocking, asking me how to play. I'm a goner, I'm a goner, but with no right thing to do. When it's not up to me, that I'm nothing to you. I'm a goner, I'm a goner, rest at the end of the day. When lightning and thunder come knocking, asking me how to stay. I'm a goner, I'm a goner, left with no right thing to do. When it's not up to me, then it's not up to you. I'm a goner, I'm a goner, rest at the end of the day. When lightning and thunder come knocking, asking me how to pray. It's a kind of a bluesy song I wrote a long time ago. Nolly and me can be seen on YouTube playing this from Shandon Steeple in Cork City. When you left the house this morning, with a swagger and a crooked smile, I was thinking of your past glory and how easy it is to use up all my time. So let's leave small water, and let the water take those leaves away. When you say you think it over, it was just another way of saying you don't care. When your face is cracked and tired, dear, and your thoughts are painted gold, your fancy words are like water, but your eyes have turned to snow. So let's when you say you think it over, it was just another way of saying you don't care. There's always sunshine behind closed doors. There's always fear. I'm going out tomorrow morning to walk along and crooked mile. Till I find what keeps me wanting you. 'Cause you know I've been cold here all the time. So let the breeze fall on the water, look like the water, take those leaves away. When you say you think it over, it was just another way to say we don't care. When you say you think it over, it was just another way to say you don't care. This is a tune Noli composed called the Mallow Tango. It's a tango. It's from Mallow. Oh, you're an F sharp minor. F sharp minor. Thank you so much. Hand you back to Joe.
Well done, Vincent and Nolan. I think they have taken us on a journey on the choppy seas. I think was part of it anyhow. But I think we ended up in a nightclub somewhere, maybe not in Soho, but anyway, we were downstairs there with Django Reinhardt, and I saw a lot of you smiling broadly at what's going on. So we've been very entertained. I even have a microphone now, so you can hear me. I think he was pleased what I said about him, so he turned it up.
I went back to the day job.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we all have day jobs. And as Michael Galvin said, and you are? Anyhow, we're having a wonderful evening. And my next guest, well, no, that's something. We have something to talk about there. One of the songs that my namesake is going to sing is called Cock Hemini. And I'm so happy we have it on the program this evening, because next year in January will be the 200th anniversary of Cock Hemini. And history is a favourite of mine, and I'm always amazed at the connections that we have globally in history. And Kemeny obviously was 1822. The story of Kemeny, or the Battle of Kemeny, goes back a few years before that, to about 1815 or 1816. And we have to go out to Indonesia, and there was an earthquake in Mount Tambola, I think it was, in Indonesia. And we remember recently where we had an ash cloud, and it brought the planes down, and nothing moved for about 6 months. Well, in that particular year, there was a summer without a summer, and the effects were felt all over the world, and especially in Ireland. So it led to a mini famine, and people at that time, you know, we started the evening with the lament for Limerick, and we were an impoverished race with very little civil rights, and people were obliged, the Catholics were obliged to pay a tithe to the established church. So at Inchkeela, the church had just been rebuilt in 1814, and the people found it very difficult to pay the rent to the landlord, not to mind paying a tithe to the tithe proctor, who was Barry. And as I said, the tithe proctor was above the law, and the tenant was outside the law. So people really had no civil rights. But yet they had courage, and they had, I think, as Daniel Cockery said in The Hidden Ireland, they had that oral tradition. They had their identity. And really, the market house here in Macroom was the scene of where Art O'Leary was first admired by his poet wife, Maura Bui Ní Connell. And the Baldwin's name is still on the street there, where the Baldwin family were connected to the O'Connells. And that poem, that was an oral poem, it wasn't written, it was an oral poem made on the death of Art O'Leary at Carriganimma in 1774, inspired the people because everybody knew about it. And we think of today, people have media in their pocket, they just take a phone out and they've got whatever information they need. But that time people had the oral tradition. And that poem, in my mind, is almost like a Hollywood blockbuster, because it tells everything you want to know as a person listening to the story. And the story was glamorous. You know, Art, as a young man, had served in Austria. He was a favourite of Empress Marie Therese. He knew her children, Marie Antoinette, the Elector of Saxony, the Bourbons, the royal heads of Europe. And this guy was a favourite of the Marie Therese, and she sent him to the Spanish riding school. You've all seen the Lipizzaner horses. She gave him a gift of one of them to come back to Macroom, and that was really what led to his death, because he was prancing around on this horse with the magnificent uniform on, and of course he was Catholic. Penal law said that he didn't own a horse worth more than £5. So he was shot at Carriganimma on May 1774, and the horse came back to Raleigh, home of Eddie and Joan Vaughan, and great storytellers too. And she got on horseback and went to find her dead husband and created the Queen Art O'Leary. And Googling, as we all do, I found there was a fella, very well known writer, Primo Levi. He was an Italian, and he was a professor at Oxford. And he said, when he was awarded the chair of English there, he said, in his mind, the poem that meant most to him in these countries was the Lament for Art O'Leary. So I went further into Primo Levi, and Levi was an Italian Jew who spent his time in a concentration camp, but he managed to keep his mind together and made a fantastic career for him. And I said, what does he share? He shares a lot with us because our roots or our ancestors had that same sort of concentration of lack of civil rights and being treated as second-class citizens, but the poem was there. And the poem was what the people held on to. That was their badge. They had nothing else. And they had that badge of poetry that reminded them of the people they were and the pride that they had in themselves. So the story comes to Kemeny, and you have yet another poet there. And she's living quite happily with her husband, who has made a lot of money in the Napoleonic War. Burke was his name. And they were living at Kemeny on several hundred acres. And she was quite an entertainer. She was everybody was welcome in their house, but she was feisty. And she didn't agree with what was going on at the time. In the first verse of the song, she talks about how she gets her inspiration, and she talks about the lovely local landscape near Guggenbarra, which inspires her to create. And of course, in the next verses, she turns violent and she blasts and curses her way through all the local landlords and stuff like that. But she incites people out to do, I suppose she'd be arrested today, for that. They'd say she was one of those ones with the burglars on them at the moment, to be inciting to violence. But anyhow, the Cock-Kemeny took place over a couple of days. It was really a matter of skirmishes, and it led to executions. And some of them are in Terrelton, and some of them are in Macroom. And I suppose it was a strike, a blow for the country. She was born more or less the same year as Art O'Leary died, 1775. Mara Bui was born that year, and Daniel O'Connell was born that year. And of course, Daniel O'Connell, in my book, I think he's one of our greatest heroes, what he has done for the country. And towards the end of her life, he'd gained Catholic emancipation. So that was a step towards the gaining of civil rights for the people, and that education was opened up after that. But that really, Corkery's book, The Hidden Ireland, he's really taken the idea that we were an oral people, things weren't written. And I think that's why we're all still great storytellers today. They say wherever Irish people go in the world, in a workforce, they knit the workforce together because they have this interest in the story and in other people and what they're doing and so on like that. So Mara Bui is buried in the old churchyard in Inchigeela, and James Barry, the dreaded land agent, was buried on the other side of it. And Smith, the man that was shot at Kemeny, is buried right behind her. And Barry O'Leary, who was one of the men shot on the day, is buried also in the graveyard. So I sometimes take people around there, and they all lie there now together. And some years ago, there was a little booklet put together, and really, I think we have to look at history and say, well, this is what has made us what we are. But, we're still talking about our War of Independence only a century ago. And this descendant of Mara Bui, he was a Padre O'Donovan, his wife was Nan Burke. And actually, their son, you'll all know the bridge that he built, the Boyne Bridge, and he also built the Drum Bridge. So these are descendants of Mara Bui. It's hoped that this brief profile of the poetess will help the younger generation to appreciate the freedom into which they were born, and is more important that they learn to use the legacy wisely. Any semblance of sectarianism, intolerance, bigotry, discrimination would be an abuse of that freedom and a negation of those that fashioned it. So I think we all need to think, even we're still doing a decade of commemorations, that we need to be inclusive. And actually, a little side story to the decades of commemoration. The two last RIC men in Inchiquita, one was Sergeant Mansell, and he was RIC man in charge of Macroom Castle in August 1920, months before the Kilmichael ambush. And in August of 1920, he was shot dead in front of my door. And the family moved to Cork. His wife died a year later. The family were orphans. But a few years ago, they came and we were able to put the story together and find the family grave for them. And we did a reconciliation, which worked so well. The man who followed him, his name was Moore. And he retired or resigned when 1923 came. So that's nearly a century next year. And he moved to Macroom with his family. And he wasn't long here when he was threatened to get out or he would be shot. So the family moved to Manchester, and within 12 months he was dead. And the widow was left with 5 or 6 children. And her eldest son, she got into Vickers, the airplane company in Manchester, and he did very, very well in his training. And he was appointed to the University of Liverpool, and he was one of the nuclear research team that developed the atomic bomb that dropped in Hiroshima. So it's amazing the ripples in the pool and how we're connected with history. So this evening is a celebration, really, of life, and life again, that we're all able to get out and about and enjoy the music. So I'm going to say, will the real Joe Creedon please stand up?
Stand up or sit down, you know.
I'm just going to do it.
All right. I don't know, I was trying to pick out songs there, a couple of songs, and I was leaning there as we were able to cut off Barna Schreider. And so it's a Kerry song, like, but we are actually Tommy Egg Barna Schreider and some are Hamid. There's a Barna Schreider, I think, in every town, and the lyrics kind of do that. And let's try, hope we can get under it or something. I'll try and go down low. Oh, the town that climbs the mountain and looks out o'er the sea. In waking times are sleeping, 'tis there I'd long to be. To walk again those kindly streets, the place my life began, with the boys of Barna Schreider who hunted for the ram. With cudgel stout we roamed about to hunt for Droleen. We searched for birds in every furze, from Litter to Dooneen we jumped for joy. Beneath the sky, life held no print nor plan for us spies of Barna Schreider who hunted for the ram. And when the hills were bleeding and the rifles were aflame, to the rebel homes of Craic, the Saxon stranger came, but the boys who dared the axes and who bade those black and tans were the boys from Barnasride who hunted for the ram. And here's a health to them tonight, the boys who fought with me by the groves of Carn River, or the slopes of Benety, Sean the and Basandy, the Sheehan's Con and Dan, and the boys from Barnasride who hunted for the ram. And now they toil on foreign soil, where they have gone their way. Deep in the heart of London town, or over on Broadway, and I am left to sing their deeds and to praise them while I can. Those boys of Barnasride who hunted for the ram. And when the wheel of life runs down and peace comes over me, just lay me down in that old town between the hills and sea. I'll take my rest in those green fields, the place my life began, with the boys from Barnasride who hunted for the ram. I better stand up to get under this one. Vi dro Coingerson fra Cachemini agus var cúpla versa de Cachemini tá seacht versa fadón so ní can mé ceircína fad agus mí óig sin scéal raibh mistalm agus cuine man ma bhar an sort of tá sé géist de seo hús nós blian son mar tá sé anna congra láhar na troda sin le gabar mé langwerig agus as ungemini sé tanvas Shavan Clan Kema in the Vlere Shavim Shek Marden and Fias for me Conshir Call the Soul Eik Machno Shalom Fenig Ei down of most maintes meges jokes na childe le bingo na mion mor a chol an cap hat the near is lorn anak hat le shions le fun manarin Craic Scléip Sneer ben lomman lor Han not orgo nadver Maroko garde the conifni andror Near an banna pashte im natrif na tiko at na garde gwil do vico is na mil all the go make fiatin der garde go lader na dimpa en glaucus egliana sex wheelen draw on loger lang by the gin shadow got flauner falles trilt lushi gomar tan kadarier agus temish na chor hanodor nos farir Chwi mahas clanu gwel Chman dyrn upon the cliff on the gershol Bulgari doing gadani lav ladder our dimple the scapader on the Go fear vok fengyo Björn brok na vombaile Vi barnetis beecher Vi henges agus fwitig Is na milelelo Arin of art go lagi gyld Gan clwg gan fans, gan rog gan sian, ydyn dyft has y mas na bian, gan fwysiof gydiog, Jed mol y môr le hiesa, Nar hil y myras yn doer, Ac y fehing den of grinde, Sta ancient so Stadded fasted chantiv Tan lavlesh and green out Tan the market and drochrigum The ween the moldog moor Ni gandum a hilderalo Nar a farade don mine a car agus gile codi the gor. Nar a dian of stand held on les, nar a dian of Craic con hook na sliw, mar a milk and shun at mar, ta ko agus agam na ko shol Biog gangsar Creol Pika go slan a goid Gan soulless fans of chwihe Not deal as good yo We've got to finish up with it. Another song, another old lochling. The trip to Gugan, the boys of the class, written round about 1905 or 6 or 7, something like that. About an excursion, and they went from the class, which was Kilnamarcha, to over to Gugan through Ballingeary. And there's a small bit of exaggeration in the song, as we'll see, because they went in these things called Hanson cars. People said 2 handsome long cars, but there's 2 Hanson long cars, and the Hanson long car could only carry 4. So, cars a car, I hope, like, but anyway, they had 2 Hanson cars, and that's why I found out the date of the song. So the Hanson long car was around 1905, but that was the era. I am one of those jolly young boys from the Crans, who's fond of amusement as well as a glance, with a thirst I can't quench and a spirit that's free. Sure, everything else plays the devil with me. Rally raffle, rally raffle, the 15th day of August of this present year. That's a day I'll remember sometime, do not fear. Too far off Gugan Barra we went for the day, with the boys of our village, light-hearted and gay. Rally raffle, rally raffle, on that holiday morning, just after first man's, we started away with our trip from the Crans. 2 handsome long cars we had hired for the day were standing there waiting to take us away. Rally raffle, rally raffle, we had Buckleys and Haleys and Sullivans too, a Connell and Larry, a Roach and a Drew. Such a crowd of McCarthy's you ne'er saw before, and the Cronins were counted by the dozen or score. Rally raffle, rally raffle, and the people were standing at every crossroads. Some stood by their windows and more by their doors, saying, who are the toffs that are dressed up so swell? There must be some grandees from William's Hotel. Rally raffle, rally raffle, we approached Ballingeary, and as we drew near, each man had his tongue out in search of a beer. But we started away just as fleet as the fawn, and about 1 o'clock we rolled into Gugan. Rally raffle, rally raffle, we were cold, tired and thirsty when the horses did stop. Each man he was smacking his lips for a drop. But we jumped from the cars and our bandits struck up, and we marched in one body straight into the pub. Rally raffle, rally raffle, some went boating all day on that lake near at hand, while more they drank porter till they could not stand. I thought I'd see sights that would dazzle my eyes, the devil a bit on the mountains and skies. Rally raffle, rally raffle, we had ladies there also, and by God were they fine. We stood them with glasses of whiskey and wine. We paid for it all without caring a trait. The worth of our money we knocked out of their waist. Rally raffle, rally raffle, we started for home before 'twould get late, and the horses were going at the devil's own rate. I thought that they'd surely fall down on the road before they could carry such a drunken old load. Cornelius O'Connell lost his Sunday calb. Pat Murphy to fetch it, he jumped from the trap. The horses being fleet and the carpet being far, he ran half a mile to catch up with the car. We were all the time standing on each other's toes. Mick Murphy thanks God that he still has his nose. He was met with an elbow that made a big thud. On my soul, boys, he lost half a gallon of blood. We approached Ballingarry and looked for some bread, but boxes of biscuits they gave us instead. The bellies being empty by each mother's son, we polished 12 boxes before we were done. No porter the owner had in the hotel, but a bad brand of stout that it failed him to sell. In order to fool us, the clever old coon, he hid the good bottles of both in his room. We came back to the cross when our day it was o'er, where we filled ourselves up with good porter once more. We recovered our senses next morning at dawn, and that put an end to the trip to Gone.
I think I've had a few drinks on the trip to Gugan myself. There was a lot of blood spilt in that last set. You could say that there was that long car opened a few heads, and my namesake did a great job on it. I think you all agree. Well, now, as far as I know, we're going down the River Lee a little bit, and we've got John Lyons and Dermot O'Donovan. And I'm going to sit back and relax and enjoy their fine music. It might not be as coarse as the trip to Gugan. It promises good talent anyhow. Well, I went down. I didn't go hard enough down the river. We didn't go down hard enough down the river. We're actually landed in Coachford. Coachford. Yeah. I must watch out now because I could topple over and knock you down, and we did no music then. I was actually, we must thank Joe Creedon for the stage. I believe there was no stage here tonight, but my namesake found the stage. And I was thinking about it, and I said a story came into my head. I was visiting somebody in hospital in Cork one day, and they were from Mill Street, and at the time there was a big concert, and Dolly Parton was expected. But when it came to it, she wouldn't go to Mill Street at all because the stage wasn't strong enough. So I think if she came here tonight, I think Dolly could perform all right, couldn't she? Would she agree? No, lads, off it, you know. You don't want Dolly Parton, I think you managed to. He's smiling anyway.
Chef. Det tar snart med läs koppla polkas den här arenas. Hamid Biogani America Clashon Dean last father. So stay with us and we'll see how we do.
Sorry.
Yeah, right. Well, to be unlocked lumsa, economic that was my fault.
You're right.
And it reminds me, can I tell another story there? Maybe Joe, why not? Because I was nervous as hell. This man has plenty of confidence, but I realized when I shut it off in the wrong key there, it reminds me of a story, it is a true story, about a trashing out in Courtsford years ago. And after the trashing, there was a big metal there, and they'd have a big party and everything, and so that night, after the grub and the Battle of Porter being capped, and they started the Craic and the singing and everything, so they had no gadget or box around, but there was a box next door, all right, down in Browns. So somebody went down to Browns because there was a man there, all right, he's gone now, dead with years and years, and Denny, he could play the box, all right, but a bit nervous. So they got the box for him with the gadget, and they sat him down and somebody called a set. And there was 8 of them jumped up to start dancing. So he played the intro perfect to the world altogether. Next thing they started dancing, and he went all over the place, of course. And he stopped up, and they started him again and again and again, and the same thing every time the dancers started dancing. Then he went all over the place with the tune, so there's always a clever fella. And he came off to Denny and he said, look here, I have a plan. So he got the chair and went over to the corner and turned the chair into the corner and Denny into the corner. So he was facing the corner all night, and I tell you, he played for the night without a mistake. So on Kate Counella, now Marshall, the Carrick March, and some people call it the Ballydisman March. So we'll try that, just a bit of variety.
Ballad or folk song now and Carrie Fergus agus ceann níos tapúla tar éis sin a riil, piece of riil.
And the money's on this time. Well done.
Okay.
I made him Margaret.
There we are. I was right in that. Have we offer on, or we're doing good. That's a tribute to their Irish teacher and coach for the Go Gaelic. He was a man that brought a great draw for the language and the culture to Coachford. And you said there was a Cretan as well involved in it. Cronin. Eileen Leonard was your finishing teacher. Yeah. That's very good. Well, folks, we're having a great evening, and John and Dermot had you all tapping your feet there, which was very good for the bit of circulation this evening, you know. But we're heading west, and for the next few of our artists, we're going towards the Ballyvourna. And I'd like to put my own advertisement in there, because the Cretan part of my name comes from Ballyvourna. And I was very interested in researching. You see, about 30 years ago, I asked a man coming from Mass one morning, how many generations of my crowd were in Inchigeela? He said, that's easy. He said, Mick, Mike, Michael, Mike, Mick. There were 5 generations of Michael. And the first Michael Creedon and Julie Desmond left Cumna Clougha in about 1830, and they settled in Ballingeary. And my grandfather ended up in Butte, Montana, and when he came back in 1911, settled in Inchigeelagh. So I'm number 10 of 14 of his grandchildren that live in Inchigeelagh were born there. And the Mike Mickle bit runs into my mother's side too, because I was asking somebody, my mother's people, there was Hurley in them, and they were from Shanachran in our parish as well. And I said, what about them now? Oh, he said there was the Randalls, the Dandles, the Dans, the Biddies, the Tadies, and the Jurries. So you can imagine. But you know, that is still in the oral tradition. And you didn't need to go to any computer to find out who you were, because you could rhyme that one off, you see. And I was reminded there were two William Cotters lived in a townland near Inchigeelagh called Cluboola. And there's Upper Cluboola and Lower Cluboola. And they were both William Cotters, and they were known as Upper Willie and Lower Willie. And in Shanachran, there was a very fine, tall man, Ger Sky, they always call him. But Ger died anyway, and there was a neighbour of his, Willie Melville, and Willie got the honour of being called Long Willie. So you can see, yeah. But anyhow, I'd like to invite Eilish Nituma and her sisters. They're going to come on to us now. And their grandmother was she was Ní Cronin. She was Bess Cronin. And Bess Cronin was discovered by the BBC early in the 1950s. And there was a really professional recording done of her songs and her own compositions as well. And about 25 years ago, your cousin in Galway, Davy, made the book collection of the songs of Bess Cronin. And I'm very proud to have one. You can't get them anywhere now.
No, they're on.
And so the girls are here, and I'm going to get out of their way and let them off. And I think the stage will hold them, all right. But then fill the stage.
Are you trying to say we're big?
You may not think much of me when you look at my small size. I'm little, but there's lots of me to love.
We'll stand. We're taller standing.
All of us.
Shall we try to get a note here? We will start off with Ceol about the two yellow goats, and we'll continue with a couple of best songs then later on, or just in an hour's time. Well, there's no cut of wheels out tonight anyway. There we go. Tá gorin buigamis min shafeinga Brishan shidan krian amma Duerta vala Níláte gamma grúing iadach Sísim hatta Ligin hatta Futa vala Taga gaurin buigam is min shafeinga Rishan shidan kreenamma durta vala Níláte gamma grúing iadach Sísim hatta Ligin hatta 3 day Futa vala Taga garsa chuile gummis chuire yalla Ní sa dí sé ní huaimak bar an netting
Gurgud amman free gele stumpen batta. Shooter valagon cleed, vadovala. Shin part not villigan beavera, heelin laddie. Part not villigan beavera, heelin laddie. Sean O'Callaghan Peebra is Biokshe Martian. Sean O'Callaghan Peebra is Biokshe Martian. Taga Gaurin Wigum is Minchuk Vainga. Brishan Sheedan Green Amma Durta Vala. Nila to come growing here, she's some hotter. Like in the hotter tree day, air for As I went out one bright morning to take a pleasant walk, I sat down beside an old stone wall just to hear two lovers talk. To hear two lovers talk, my dear, to hear what they might say, so I might learn a little more about love before I go away. P it stands for Paddy, I suppose. J for my love, John. W stands for false Willie O, but Johnny's the fairest man. Johnny is the fairest man, she said. Johnny is the fairest man. I don't care what anybody says, for Johnny is the fairest man. Well, come and sit beside me, love, beside me on the green. It's a long 3/4 of a year or more since together we have been. Since together we have been, my dear, together we have been. It's a long 3/4 of a year or more since together we have been. Oh, I'll not sit beside you, love, now or any other time, for I hear you have another little lass, and your heart's no longer mine. And your heart's no longer mine, she said. Your heart's no longer mine. I don't care what anybody says, for your heart's no longer mine. P it stands for Paddy, I suppose. J for my love, John. W stands for false Willie O, but Johnny is the fairest man. Johnny is the fairest man, she said. Johnny is the fairest man. I don't care what anybody says, for Johnny is the fairest man. I will climb a tall, tall tree and rob a wild bird's nest. Back I'll bring what I find there to the girl I love the best. To the girl I love the best, she said. The girl I love the best. Back I'll bring what I find there to the girl I love the best. P it stands for Paddy, I suppose. J for my love, John. W stands for false Willie O, but Johnny is the fairest man. Johnny is the fairest man, she said. Johnny is the fairest man. I don't care what anybody says, for Johnny is the fairest man. P it stands for Paddy, I suppose. J for my love, John. W stands for false Willie O, but Johnny is the fairest man. Johnny is the fairest man, she said. Johnny is the fairest man. I don't care what anybody says, for Johnny is the fairest man.
William Potteen Jensen.
Up to Jan var det var her bas, och ni vår det kush i susa trot. Opsiana var for the varbas, och ni vår en eker kushi susatrad. Kuckenendi nendi, kuckenendi o, kuckenendi nendi, kuckenendi o. Kuckenendi nendi, kuckenendi o, partinana tides in Filibikyo. He didn't dance a dance and he didn't dance today. He didn't dance a dance and no, nor yesterday. He didn't dance and dance and he didn't dance today. He didn't dance and dance, you know, until after day. Throw him up, throw him up high, throw him up, and he'll come down by and by. Throw him up, throw him up high, throw him up, and he'll come down by and by. Throw him over, throw him over, say, throw him over, he'll be here today. Throw him over, throw him over, say, throw him over, he'll be here for day. Towdy-idey-idey, towdy-idey-um, towdy-idey-idey-idey-idey-um, towdy-idey-idey-idey-idey-um, diddly-idey-idey-idey-idey-um. Piper, sell your pipes and buy your wife a gown. Piper, sell your pipes and buy your wife a gown. Piper, sell your pipes and buy your wife a gown. I wouldn't sell my pipes for all the wives in town. Cook-a-nandy-nandy, cook-a-nandy-o, cook-a-nandy-nandy, cook-a-nandy-o. Cook-a-nandy-nandy, cook-a-nandy-o, party-nanity, the singing Filibikyo. Hop!
Our grandmother Bess was noted for her little ditties like that. So there's no harm to air them. They're not heard very often. So we'll finish with another one of them, very short one.
Calling me glow to Viry, calling me glow to Viry, calling me glow to Viry, Ballig the Loch and his Filey. Calling me glow to Viry, calling me glow to Viry, calling me glow to Viry, Ballig the Loch and his Filey. Calling me glow to Viry, Ballig the Loch and his Filey. Calling me glow to Viry, Ballig the Loch and his Filey. Geraldine, don't be idle, Geraldine, don't be idle, Geraldine, don't be idle, gather your ducks and mind 'em. Geraldine, don't be idle, Geraldine, don't be idle, Geraldine, don't be idle, gather your ducks and mind 'em. Geraldine, don't be idle, gather your ducks and mind 'em. Geraldine, don't be idle, gather your ducks and mind 'em. You!
Well, thanks, Eileen. I'm after getting a great compliment there. Eileen was saying that they've toured with that collection of music. And the first night that they performed as a group was in my house some years ago. But they have, it's a beautiful talent that they've got, and they're representing their grandmother so well. And I'm sure that is only going to go from spring to spring now that they're going to be back on the road again. A woman I always think of when music is in action is Kate Buckley. And Kate was, she lived by the top of Coombe, and she was a notorious character. And one night, Donncha Dooling was in Inchigeela, and Kate decided she'd come at about 3 o'clock in the day to be recorded. And Lord mercy, and Donncha has gone on to God last week, I think. But anyway, Kate arrived about 3 o'clock, and Donncha wasn't going to do any recording until about 10 o'clock that night. And she was pacing up and down the village and pacing up and down the village. And eventually, about 4 o'clock, a vehicle full of sound equipment came, and we persuaded them to bring in a microphone and tape her. And she was delighted because the microphone was about that length. So she got to work anyway. It was a sunny day, and she sang, and the song she sang was Caroline, and there were about 20 verses in it. But she was a very strong woman anyway, and she set off to work, singing beautifully. And in the 4th verse, the jacket had to come off anyway, and she continued singing. But towards the end of it, she was pulling at her neckwear to try and get the last ounce of air into her. But she and her brother Jerry were great characters, and Gugan would be a place they'd go off on a Saturday evening, and they'd give the day in the pub, and Kay'd be back and forward to the oratory, and they'd be back for tea and back and forward and scraping all day anyway. Around 10 or 11 o'clock that night, they were going home, so they'd come down to Gugan Cross, and they should come on to Ballingeary and to go up to the highest pub again. But whatever mistake they made anyway, it was out through the Pass of Kemeny they went. And they were travelling, but Jerry never drove too fast. And after an hour or two anyway in the dark night, they got a puncture. So they decided to stay where they were, and they slept overnight in the car anyway. And the first dawn, Kate looked out and she said, "Jerry," she said, "is that Bantry Bay I see?" she said. And Kate Gerald, he said, "We're awfully lucky with a puncture. We'd have been in Castletown Bear." Our next performer is Joe McSweeney, and Joe is from Badavorna, and he has made quite a name for himself with the COVID, and that the recordings were going out on the computer. And my wife is from North Kerry, and she picked up this recording from Abbeyfield, and she sent it to me, and I said, "That's Badavorna man," and his wife is an Inchigeela woman. But anyhow, I sent it to my sister in Canada, and Joe is a sensation in Toronto. They just love his singing. So I'll say no more and welcome him onto the stage. The stage is dangerous, Joe.
Yeah. By the way, Mrs. Marie Twomey nominated me to come here from the Macroom Singers Choir, so that's why I'm here at all. In my memory, I will always see the town that I have loved so well, where our school played ball by the gas yard wall, and we laughed through the smoke and the smell. Going home in the rain, running up the dark lane, past the jail and down behind the fountain. Those were happy days in so many, many ways, in the town I love so. In the early morning, the sharp factory horn brought women from Craic, the moor and the bog, while the men on the dole played a martyred mother's role, fed the children and then walked the dogs. But when times got tough, there was just about enough, and they saw it through without complaining. For deep inside was a burning pride in the town I love so well. There was music there in the dairy air, like a language that we all could understand. I remember the day when I earned my first pay, when I played in a small pickup band. There I spent my youth, and to tell you the truth, I was sad to leave it all behind me, where I learned about life, and I found a wife in the town I love so well. But when I return, how my eyes have burned to see how a town could be brought to its knees by the armoured cars and the burned out bars and the gas that hangs on every breeze. By that old gas yard wall, and that damn barbed wire gets higher and higher with their tanks and their guns. Oh my God, what have they done to the town I love so well? Now the music's gone, but the fireside old songs will be sung, and at last I'll be hearing my own mother tongue. For these are my mountains, and this is my glen, the days of my childhood, I'll see them again. No land ever claim me, though far did I roam, for these are my mountains, and I'm going home. Thank you.
Entertainer in that voice. And his dear wife, Marion, is an Inchigeelagh woman, but she has two aunts that had a restaurant in Macroom, the Coakley restaurant. And they were telling me one day that back in the day when they were in Macroom in their business, they had the playwright Sean O'Casey for supper one evening. And he was sent to them because he wanted to know more about the story of the Kilmichael ambush. And they filled him in and a lot of that. So it was a memorable evening in Macroom. The playwright was thereby. I see here in front of me two ladies I must pay tribute to, because the last time we were all performing, they entertained us with an Ogilvy birth. That's right, I think they did. Anyway, they're very shy and bashful, but I want to say hello to them and thank them, and glad to see them here. I don't need to introduce the next act because you all know them. We have Peadar O'Reilly and Connie O'Connell. But I'd like to make mention of that notice board there, Cork Education and Training Board. And the staff here provide so many courses for people, adults and so on like that, coming back to education. And I would be short of what I need to say if I don't mention the schools in Macroom, because you've got the convent, you've got the vocational, and you have the brothers up there. My three sons went to school here in Macroom, and we are so grateful for their time there and the help that they were given to the teachers there. And my wife says that the most important thing, or the most amazing thing, is to be a good teacher. And I think we all have come across good teachers, but they go on sometimes. And I want to put that on record tonight, that the teachers in Macroom are not idle. They do a good job. And the education is also going on here tonight too. Thank you. All the better.
It's so long since we played. Only 2 years.
2 years. Too long, guys.
A strange thing when this thing started a year and a half or 2 years ago. Musicians are trying to find a way to play with each other, but when you play on a Zoom or anything like that, there's a delay between one and the other, and they can't play together. So we found out about this thing in America called Jazz Kazan, which the jazz players were using in America. And it would work temporarily, all right, but the thing is, you'd want a degree in flying an airplane to actually get it switched on. So the result is that musicians didn't play for the last year and a half, and they didn't play at home on their own either. And it is a very strange kind of trauma for them. I'm kind of finding out a lot about it in recent months as I get to talk to them. So it is great to see an audience in front of us today.
Take a long time to think over this.
It's hard to keep the instruments from getting excited. Control them, hold them back like horses. Right, Sam. I'm waiting for your brain. Right, yeah. So. As well as your perish with the cold. It's cold over here. It'd be all the warmer if we had pints, but anyway, that's another story. That's next year, I suppose. Gurma, before we play a few reels through, are you watching the time there in case we...
I'm watching the two of me and an 80.
My grandmother and his father had an awful row over at a wedding in Inchigeele back in 1968 or 69, one of the first weddings I was at. Because my grandmother's Creedon from Dromrag in Kilmartin next door to Connie here. And both of them thought Johnny Creedon and herself thought they were fierce genealogists. And exactly. And Johnny was holding a big tray of meat up like that over his head, handing it out at the breakfast over, which was in the middle of the day, of course. And he said, well, Julie, he said, we're near related. And she said, jigs, all right, so jigs it is, so you had polkas, slides, and jigs now. Yeah. Have you enough there now? Here we go.
We go away, we need all go away.
We play one shot jig.
Go on again.
One jig. Kitty lay over apparently. I have literally all dog, you wouldn't mention it. And it isn't Katie he's talking about either.
No. No, so I think the vanity should be coming on now, and her name is Lena Cronin. And wait till I tell you now, I shouldn't be here at all, but she landed in Inchville. She has done this a couple of times before. And the last time I went to hide, thinking that I could get rid of her, she went to the post office. She went to the hardware. My wife was missing. I wasn't up, I was still in bed. 3 people were still calling me, and eventually her head appeared around the door. So what you do when all that happens, you have to do what you're told. Did you think, now, so have a look at her now, and if you see her coming around your house, disappear, run, go for it. And she doesn't cold or nothing else puts her off. Would that be right? I think it is, yeah. This is Lena Cronin. I should not bother, I keep you away from you. Yeah. We won't talk to each other anymore after tonight.
I know this blackguard now for about 10 years, and the story is actually true. I did go all over in Shigila last week or the week before, and we finally rang Anne, his wife, the woman in the post office rang Anne to see where was Joe. And then the woman in the post office said, well, you know, Joe Craic, I was saying to the woman in the post office, you know, have you got a mobile from her or something? And she said, don't you know Joe, like, Joe's going to be up a mountain, like, he's not going to have a mobile with him. So we had great fun. And I must say, the first day I met him, I was coming from, I shouldn't actually try to tell stories at all, because my mother and myself are the worst storytellers in the world. We're totally ladronic. But anyway, the first day I met Joe, I was in West Cork, and I went into Credence, and I thought, I'm going to sit down here now in a corner and I'm going to write a poem or something like that, you know. So, you know, if you're a woman in a small pub in Ireland and you walk in like the door and everybody inside looks at you. So there was Joe anyway, and about 6 guys in the pub in the middle of the day having their round table meeting. And all I can say is, since that day forward, Joe Craic is a wonderful storyteller. He's, you know, one of those Renaissance men, really, do you know? And if you haven't been to Credence Hotel, you've got to go there first. This is the advertising. So really good scones, apple tart, raspberry jam extraordinaire, and what else? Oh yeah. Oh no, I'll get there. So the other thing as well is, if you actually want to learn to paint, I was down in Credence about 2 years ago. Joe said, no bother at all, Lena, come out here into the yard, sit on one of those barrels there. And I was like Leonardo. I went away with 5 paintings. So Joe Craic is he's just a wonderful character. And what was it you said I should say? The last bit there, and I forgot.
Sing more till I have a drink.
Well, I must say he's been a really good friend to us down the years, and I think of all his really good qualities is that he is really able to make people feel at home. He's, you know, so a bull of us. I know oh, that's really new, Joe. I think we could actually. And actually, if we do the TV show ever, Mary Crowley has got to be the film director, because she started that yesterday. Mary Crowley here. Oh, she's down there somewhere. Anyway, Joe has taken the fear out of me standing up here now. So all I really want to do is oh my God, there's no way I'll remember it now. Anyway, Govin Shiv sauce of Asani her fad. And then I'm going to copy John Spillane, right? Because I was down in Bantry there a few years ago. First of all, aren't we brilliant or what? Like, that'll get us through the whole night. And then John was there, you know, we were at a workshop, and I must say he's one of the most enthusiastic and, you know, really creative guy, and a really nice man into the bargain. So his whole motto for the week is, you sing for the good of the song. And I think that is really beautiful, you know, because I think everybody here tonight sang for the good of the song. Egos were left outside the door. People just sang or played their tunes or whatever, you know, and I think that's a really lovely thing to be able to do, that you sing and you do whatever it is you do for the love of it. And I would say that, you know, Pather and all the people in Coolay, we're very lucky to be, I better read this out because I never get through the whole thing. Basically, anyway, I wanted to say we were very, very lucky to be living next to the Gaeltacht here in Macroom, to have Pather and Connie and Alishi Huma, agus a Drafurica, a going nocht. Normally we go on the bus straight on Culture, but this week the Gaeltacht has come to us, so we so Creiliv Golair. Now, so we started off with John Spillane saying, aren't we great, aren't we brilliant, or what? And then go to Mallow, to Nolly Ward, for another bit of wisdom. Because Nolly said to me once, a long time ago, we were talking about music, every musician or every singer or every artist needs an audience. And I think you've been a wonderful audience. So thank you very much. Now, I was at home and I was thinking, how am I going to remember to thank everybody? So I'm going to have a quick look at my notes. So I really want to thank Sheila Gould, first of all, because she left really early and she did us a real good favour coming down and playing the harp because she had other commitments as well. And then I thought, well, maybe we should actually start with God, you know, because we put on our poster, Tugan and Green in Igna Faringa, that sunshine comes after rain, and it's our first gig, and it didn't rain. But if, yay! And actually, if you look over your heads, or when you're on the way out, you can see a beautiful moon as well. But so in case it did rain, we are very obliged to the Lee Valley Enterprises for giving us this tent as well. So a boulevard for them as well. And then Jerry Kelleher, I don't know, is Jerry here somewhere? Jerry, thanks a million for the bus straight on Culture. We would have gone, it's like one of those Mochaneela things, we would have gone to Gogon this year. Padre and myself had been planning a great event down there. But, you know, COVID, but, you know, we're here in Macroom, we're having a good time anyway. No, where are we? So I'm thinking really the whole thing was something, the last few weeks was something between a Mahal and a Scléip. So I rang Joe Creedon in Macroom. Where's Joe in Macroom? So I rang Joe in Macroom and I'd only met Joe once before a few years ago, and he did a lovely session of Shanos, and actually it was the Oglav birthday here in McGeegan. Oh my goodness, so they are. So you all did, that's really good that you're here now, and Joe as well, and they did a lovely Oglav birthday, you know, conversation in Irish a few years back. So I rang Joe, and this is what I mean by mehel, really, when you can ring somebody out of the blue and they'll say no bother at all. So I rang Joe and I said, Joe, would you ever sing a few songs for us? And he said, no bother. And then I was being a bit cheeky, really. I said, would you ever sing one of my favourite songs, even if it is from Kerry? Could you sing Barna Shrada? And, you know, I heard that song in Kerry a few years ago, and I thought, a Shanos guy down there. But I thought, here's Joe singing it tonight, and it's, you know, that's what's going to stay in my head. And then yesterday or the day before, I rang him again, and I said, Joe, you know Macroom now fairly well. Is there any place at all that would give us a tent? And he said, well, you know, you could ring John Lyons. John probably has a tent. And if John doesn't have a tent, come back to me. So that's how kind and helpful Joe Creedon in Macroom is. And he's a wonderful singer, as you know. So then John Lyons came along yesterday and he put up this stage, along with Mike Crowley, Mary's husband. I don't know where Mike is. And so John not alone put up the stage for us, but he and Dermot presented some lovely tunes to us tonight. So, Mila Buikas. And then, who had we then? Eilish, agus Drafurica. Well, what can you say that they're singing is Harvar, or Mila Mahagib. Agus is more an true a nach féidir le hailín ní Leonard bheith anseo nachling. Mar tá ról lárnach ag Ailín san an seo ar san na Gaeilge. Agus molamid go háirdí. So that's, I hope somebody, and also.
What is it? She's a steel fist.
The tune that Nori wrote.
So softly at night, go get back to you, son. Magnolia, you sweet flame.